Hey everyone, welcome to another recording session of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Getting things set up to go here. As we do, I want to remind you, if you're catching us on the Polite Society podcast, Facebook or YouTube streams, go ahead and comment and we'll get those comments up, get them on the air. If you are catching us anywhere else, on Twitter, on a Facebook group, on OpsLens, on anywhere else, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag PS Podcast. I'll get those just as quickly. We'll get those on the air as well. I'm just making sure all of my social media is hooked up. And while I'm doing that, why don't I go ahead and introduce everybody to who else is going to be on the air with me today. Up on the upper right of your screen is John Richardson. Of course, he is the guy behind the Only Guns and Money blog. Below John is Charli Cook. He plays trumpet and shoots guns, and also does riding shotgun with Charli. You had to be there 30 minutes ago when Pete over at Gun Websites made a comment. Charli, I'll let you explain that one. I'm finishing social media here.
So we were obviously talking, and Pete said he was cruising through YouTube, looking at videos of people play trumpet, and then all of a sudden someone pulls a gun out, and lo and behold, it was me. But I find it hard that Pete's like watching trumpet solos on. We ended up talking a bit about music. And the country artists that are coming out as anti-gun and how we used to listen to when we were younger and whatnot. So
Pete didn't know that was your alter ego?
I think he did know, but I think he was just trying to play it up a bit.
Okay, because I'm like, Pete knows everything.
Yeah, I'm sure he knows.
All right, let's see here. Yeah, we're 500 Magnum and Pete over Gun Websites checking in over on the YouTube side. So hey guys,
see, Pete's on YouTube.
Everything. Yeah. I
think now that our commenting crew is starting to check in, we can go ahead and get started here.
Oh, we got to finish. We got to finish with Amanda, right?
Yeah. Geez. Some days I wonder if I ever did recover from my stroke. Of course, beside Charli is Amanda Suffecool. She's Eye on the Target Radio. I'm hoping coming back soon, Women for Gun Rights. Maybe end of the month, maybe February. What do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, well, we're working on it. We're working on a whole new concept, and so that takes a little bit. And then there's things like vacation, and then SHOT Show, and then the NRA board meetings, and then, oh, by the way, Florida Carry, and then Ambassadors Academy, and then, yeah.
It's so good that you've retired and slowed down.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
We got to be careful. We got to be careful not to make Paul laugh too much.
Oh, yeah. I got this. Whatever I got. I got it Christmas Day, and it started affecting me the next day. And
and he's not done yet.
You know what? Every time I think I'm done, just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Let's do this.
Is that a movie reference?
It is.
Sorry.
All right. Speaking of pulling us back in, let's do Masada Ayub if everybody's ready. Here we go. 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. And I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire. Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this on Monday, January the 9th, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about SAF's win in New Jersey.
And I'm Amanda Suffecool, and we're going to talk more about the assault weapon ban. Well, they're modifying things here. Hold on. So we're going to talk more about the assault weapons ban nonsense that's happening in Illinois.
I'm Charli Cook, and we'll talk about an armed citizen who was walking in Memphis. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
It's not a Mark Kahn song coming. It's episode 646 of the Polite Society podcast, starting right now. All right, it's Monday night. It's 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. A little bit after because we were slow getting started, but it is time for Polite Society Podcast. John, we're going to start with you this week. What's been up with you since the last time you were on Polite Society Podcast?
Well, I was on the Weekend Bullet on Saturday with you, Charles Seller, and Mike Piowarski. I also worked the Grassroots North Carolina booth at our local gun show. I purposely took no cash to the gun show so I would not be tempted. Other than that, I'm getting ready to head to the SHOT Show this Saturday. So that's what's going on with me. Amanda, you've been busy.
Oh, I have been, definitely have been busy, and I just want to say that if you took no money with you, not to be tempted, most of them will take credit cards, so that ship doesn't sail. Just say it. But I was on vacation for a week, and then directly after I headed to Dallas for the NRA winter meetings. If you've never made it to an annual meeting, you're missing something. If you've never made it to a board meeting, or you've not taken the time to read the minutes of the meeting, there is a lot of stuff happening within the committees. And right now, the NRA is doing an amazing amount of work with a skeleton crew that is the staff that they still have within the NRA structures, because COVID really, really took down a lot of their staff. So, Charlie, what about you?
I have had my first work end of 2023. I taught a home firearm safety class for a few people on Saturday. And on Sunday, I went up to New Hampshire and I taught a Utah course. And in between the holidays, I went down to Newburgh, New York, and I recorded an episode of Chopping It Up with the guys from the Gun Experiment, which is Mike and Big Keith. And they have the Gun Experiment podcast, but then they have this side podcast where it's not necessarily gun stuff, but it's also some current events. And they call it Chopping It Up, and they had me on for a second time, and that was a lot of fun. And that is what's been keeping me busy. Paul, what's been happening with the Bullet, besides having on John and Mike and Charles Heller?
And I was off a lot of last week because I couldn't get 3 sentences out without hacking up, and as I can get maybe 4 or 5 now, so we're kind of trudging along. Had a great show on Friday with Tom Walls of the Firearms Academy of Seattle, and we're talking about what the journey's like from just being a firearm owner and maybe somebody that's taken a little training to somebody that becomes a trainer, and what that journey looks like. And really enjoyed that one. Then, of course, we had the weekend show with John and Mike, and had a good time with that one. Today I had some dude that played trumpet and shot guns come on with me for the Bullet. So let me see here. Let me get some comments in, because we've got great people watching and listening. Spartan 6. Oh man, I was about to ask if his feet were 10 feet off of Beale. Let me get Jack Need's comment here from Facebook up. Yes, that Goo podcast you appeared on, you looked sexy in that hot pink light, Charlie.
Great.
Wow. I don't know that I want to know anything more about that.
Can we fix my color? There's only so much I can do on my end.
All right. On my part, yeah, just doing the bullet, trying to get to the point where I can speak, and getting a few other things straightened out. I am not going to, and this is killing me, I'm not going to SHOT Show. I'm changing that no matter what. Even if I got to go on my own dime, I'm changing that in 2024. All my friends are going to be there. I'm not, and it's killing me. So, 2020.
What can I say besides maybe you need new friends if we're all leaving you?
Well, I'm going to say this: when you send us pictures, what is it? You go to the Virgin Islands?
Yeah.
We're going to be like, oh, that damn Paul, man. He's looking at him. He's having a good time in the Virgin Islands. Here we are. We're slaving away back on the mainland.
Yeah.
Right?
It's snowing and
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm doing it in the middle of February, so yeah.
Come soft.
Anyway,
We'll be jealous of you then. We'll be jealous of you then.
Let's talk a little bit about Self-Defense Radio Network. Tagline, of course, all your pro-freedom podcasts in one place. You can see that we're up there. Rob Morris's Self-Defense Gun Stories. Eye on the Target Radio. Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Armed Lutheran Radio. A lot of great shows up there. More are on the way. Go to self-defense, sdrn.us or selfdefenseradio.net. Both will get you there. The information for each of the shows is right there. And let's just click here. If that'll, there we go. You got latest episodes right there for Get Off My Lawn. And there's also the subscription information right there if you want to subscribe to them. So, again, sdrn.us, all your favorite pro-freedom podcasts in one place. We're going to go and we're going to step aside to break, then we've got to get to our news segment. And before we do that, we're going to hear from ACLDN. We'll be right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right. Welcome back to the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. This is our news segment. And before we get into that, I want to get 2 comments in here real quick, both of them by Michael DeWine. He says, hello, everybody. Thank you for all you do. I always enjoy your shows. Again, I'm driving. Last time I tried to come on while I was driving using voice to text got me in trouble. But I hope I was, and it continues, forgiven. Didn't mean to offend anyone. And Paul, I think you must have the 9mm variant of COVID. It blows out the lung clear out of your body. So, Michael, I remember when you were doing that, and we were able to get the gist of what you were saying. So, yeah, Yeah, all is good, and thanks for checking in, Michael. I still got at least part of one lung in my body, so it hasn't totally blown my lungs out. So let's go ahead and talk news here. First story I have is actually a press release from the home offices in Bellevue. A federal judge in New Jersey has granted a temporary restraining order in a case brought by SAF and several co-plaintiffs. U.S. District Judge Renee Marie Bum in Camden noted plaintiffs have demonstrated a probability of success on the merits of their Second Amendment challenge to the relative provisions of the new law. Also, in her opinion, she observed the state may regulate conduct squarely protected by the Second Amendment only if supported by a historical tradition of firearm regulation. Here, plaintiffs have shown that defendants will not be able to demonstrate a history of firearm regulation to support any of the challenged provisions. Much longer than that, but I don't think I can have the lung capacity to totally get through it. Who wants to jump in here first?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm sure New Jersey will be probably appealing this. I mean, it is New Jersey, for God's sake. But they're right. I mean, there is no historical tradition for all the gun control that they're doing. The magazine restrictions, whatever. I did find out something interesting this weekend talking to an attorney. If you remember, New Jersey used to have a 15-round maximum magazine capacity. I said, where in the world did they come up with 15? Because we were talking about 10-round capacity. He said, well, think about the original magazine for the M1 carbine. It was 15 rounds, and that's where they took it from. I'm like, that made sense. So, I'm glad to see. I just looked up Judge Bum, and she was appointed to the bench by George W. Bush. So she's been there a while. She's not some newbie. And a lot of the people that Bush Jr. or W appointed tended to be not always good gun people. I'm glad to see that she's upholding the law.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie and I talked about this on the bullet today, and what I brought up wasn't exactly completely relevant, but interesting. The name of we got a Judge Sinatra in New York that ruled. Now we got a Judge Bum. We're getting interesting names of judges that are taking these Second Amendment cases.
So what I mentioned during the bullet is it's nice to see that there's someone in New Jersey that is thinking things a little clearer, which is good news. And for all the people that say that you should, if you don't like the gun laws there, you should just move. It kind of feels vindicated. I would imagine someone would feel vindicated that somebody's finally coming around and saying, "Hey, listen, you know what? Oh, this is nonsense, and it's not necessarily feasible for folks to move out, but it's good news for sure."
Comment from Robert: they delayed the parallel ANJRPC oral arguments because of the ruling by Judge Bum, who is not a bum. Excuse me. The ANJRPC suit challenges almost all the new carry law.
Right. Yeah, so one of the things that I found out while I was at the winter board meeting for the NRA was that there's a lot of different things that are kind of in the queue, and it's like, if this happens, then this guy will go. If this happens, then this guy will go. And so the NRA, FPC, SAF, the New Jersey organization that Anthony Calandro is, those folks are all kind of in conversation with one another, and they're really pretty savvy about what's going to get us to the spot where, I mean, we really are winning. And we're winning so much that the anti-gun states are just kind of like in an alligator death roll because they just don't know what to do with themselves. But we're winning.
Oh, yeah. And our next story amplifies that because we got a big win in the Fifth Circuit on Friday. The Fifth Circuit basically ruled that ATF does not have the ability to write law in and of themselves. The bump stock ban was what it was on. Bump stocks were just unilaterally declared to be machine guns, and my understanding is the Fifth Circuit said, "Look, here's the law. There are two laws that say what is a machine gun. This ain't that. Therefore, this is not constitutional."
And they also did the whole, oh, by the way, you can't write law, Congress writes law.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in there. And because that's in there, think about the impact of what is that going to do with the ATF and where they're going after the pistol braces that they haven't really done anything with yet. What about the triggers, the reset triggers or the spring-loaded triggers?
Forced reset, yeah.
Forced reset. So they haven't. So expect, pause and think, but expect those two to both go in a holding pattern while this is addressed. And then, John, I wanted to ask you this because when I heard this, I was like, John will know the answer. How is there a way for that the government is going to be forced to make all of the people whole that were forced to cut their bump stocks in half or take them to the police? Or what about the company that took them skids and truckloads of it? And in effect, I mean, the company lost it went out of business. And, oh, by the way, the vendors who had the building and the vendors who sold them the plastic and the vendors who sold them the molds and all of those guys, they're not going to say, oh, never mind, the government made it illegal, so you don't owe us.
Well, I think the case here is going to be, right now this only applies in the Fifth Circuit, so Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. I have no doubt that the government is going to appeal, but the question is whether or not the Supreme Court would take the case on certiorari. If they do, they would do it probably because there's a split in the circuits. The Sixth Circuit, which had a ruling almost identical to this a couple years ago, when they went to en banc, said, no, the district court was right. But in terms of compensating people, you would have to, there's potential that they could be compensated. But you got to remember, the government, if you want to, you'd have to go to the Court of Federal Claims, and you'd have to submit your claim there. I mean, it is a taking. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It is a taking without due process of law and without just compensation.
Robert says they should be paid back out of the ATF's budget. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go on and say that I think, Amanda, you're absolutely correct about pistol braces. And I think that is actually more important coming out of this decision down the road than what we might see really with regard to bump stocks, because there's a lot more pistol braces and they're a lot more useful. Somebody said, what, 12 million? So, yeah. Though I would want to say one thing, and I did a little blog post on this Sunday night. One of the attorneys, this case, Michael Cargill, was represented by the New Civil Liberties Alliance, and they also did one of the cases out of Utah. But one of their senior litigation counsels was a person by the name of Harriet Hageman. It's like, geez, that name sounds really familiar. Well, she is now U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. She was the person who beat Liz Cheney in the GOP Cong in Wyoming. And I'm like, God, could we get this lady on the House Judiciary Committee overseeing the ATF?
That's just an email to Jim Jordan. That's what that is, because I cannot see where he would not just love that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to have someone that likes shooting in the ATF?
Running.
Well, they like shooting.
Yeah,
like
not just
us.
in.
Well, okay, all right. Yeah, you know what I mean. Someone to run the ATF.
Is that what you said, John?
Right. No.
That's right.
If we had someone that was if we had someone that was pro-gun in the ATF, that would be very nice.
I'm trying to think. When I drove truck, I used to like to listen to audiobooks as I was going down the road. And I really got into,
I can see him. Can't you see him as a Louis L'Amour guy?
And he writes cowboys, right? Cowboy stories?
Yeah.
No. No. And I got into trying to remember I cannot remember the name of the author, but he wrote the spy stuff, Clear and Present Danger.
Clancy.
Clancy, yeah. And Clancy's protagonist eventually in the book series becomes president of the damn United States and keeps his gun and keeps carrying his gun in the Oval Office. That is what we need. A president that says, okay, well, I'm glad to have you, Secret Service. I'll keep my gun. Thank you.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Our next story we're staying in the federal courts. A federal appeals court on Friday said it would reconsider next month whether a federal law prohibiting nonviolent felons from owning firearms is constitutional in the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision last year in the Bruin decision. The Philadelphia-based Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals voted to have the full court rehear the case of a Pennsylvania man convicted of welfare fraud who argued the ban violates the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment right to bear arms. I like this. If you are a good enough person not to be in prison, you ought to be a good enough person to have all of your enumerated rights in the Constitution.
Well, they said, this is another piece of statistic that I picked up, that the Bruin case in the last 6 months has been cited in court cases 260 or 290 times. And a large majority of them are sightings by felons saying that the Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And so they say, we are the people. We are people. And so so they're using the Bruin case to try to get out of the gun charges associated with whatever they're going through. So whether in the stacking up of other things where felons are recommitting crimes, but they're all citing Bruin as a piece of it. So it's getting really interesting watching where people are plucking it out and what they're doing with it.
And it was brought up I think you brought it up on Saturday, John, when Amy Coney Barrett was going up for her confirmation for Supreme Court. It got brought up quite often that when she was in, I want to say the Fourth Circuit, Sixth Circuit, Seventh Circuit, okay, that she wrote an opinion saying that some felons should have their Second Amendment rights restored.
She did. It was actually a dissenting opinion.
Yeah.
In some case coming out of the Seventh Circuit saying, she said, nonviolent criminals, we really need to look hard at whether or not nonviolent felons should be denied their civil rights forever. And she's right.
Yeah. Jack Neat over on the Facebook side. I like John's backdrop. Those shelves looks like he's a fun guy at happy hour. I will say this: what you see behind me, that is a video effect. I actually shot that video, but in January, the falls here in Sioux Falls are not nice and flowing with bright green leaves on the trees. That's not a real shot right now. What you see behind John, that's real right now.
Well, that's what they're talking about. Is it's a whole different liquid that's flowing.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, I don't know that it's flowing right now, but
and I think my wife would love to say that was all of it. But it's not.
Is that all your booze? No, that's not all my booze.
No.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Next story, and Amanda, I got to admit, and it's open knowledge, I do Amanda's video production for her shows on Sunday nights. And I heard her bring this up, but there's a bill in Texas right now, Senate Bill 354 by Bob Hall is the guy that introduced it. What this would do in Texas is, if you have a concealed carry permit now, Texas is permit optional now. You do not have to have one to carry. However, if you do have a Texas permit, this bill would say that the school board cannot ban you from carrying on school property. I love this bill. I really, really, really hope it goes through. I hate to say that. I love to say South Dakota leads the nation in gun freedoms. South Dakota doesn't have this yet. But I hope it goes through in Texas, and I hope the other freedom-loving states follow suit.
That would be great, especially after what happened in Uvalde last year, that Texas comes out and says, hey, listen, we've got a solution for situations like that, and it's to arm the teachers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this case, it would be to arm the parents and arm the teachers and arm the school bus drivers and the lunch lady.
And the janitors and the lunch lady. Yeah.
Yep.
And,
I mean, one of the statements that they make in the Faster Saves Lives program is that they strongly encourage the accessory folks in a school. Not the, everybody talks about the teachers. But I'm not saying yes teachers, no teachers. I'm saying in addition to the teachers, those folks who are working in the school, who are walking in the school. So the counselors and the janitor and the coaches and people who are moving around the building a lot more than just being in a classroom, because they know that school frontwards and backwards, and they know if something's not right within their school. And so that's really an advantage as they as you're trying to defend your school.
Yeah, I mean the people that work in the office, whether it's the secretary or the nurse, these are the I've been going into schools for a long time. These are the offices that you see in the front of the building, and these are the people that should have some means of protection. I mean they buzz people in the school all the time, so they're the gatekeepers for people getting into the school buildings.
Let's do this. I want to get one comment in, then I want to take a quick break. We'll come back. We got enough news for one more segment, but I want to get this comment in here real quick. Oops, that's not the comment. I must not have come down here. There it is. George Geller has a comment I wanted to get up. I spy a future NRA official. Certainly not me. They don't like me. So, and I don't think, John, I don't think you're high on their list of favorite people either, are you?
I'm just going to say I think Amanda is a glutton for punishment. That's just me.
I have to say that in my 40 years of engineering and problem solving, I've heard that a couple times. So.
All right.
There was, there's just a spot where you're looking at it going, okay, why? I got better things to do. But the NRA's 151 years old. And how can you explain it if we let it go by the by? So somebody's got to fight for it.
Yeah.
And so that's really it. So it's kind of not on my watch.
I will say this. We need a strong NRA. We need the NRA to do what it was doing 15 and 20 years ago. We need a strong, solid NRA. And we don't have that right now. I'm certainly hoping, Amanda, that you're successful, and I'm hoping you're able to lead a charge to get things straightened up there.
The board members, there's 76 board members, so in no way is there one board member who's going to do something. But it's you sway where it is and what's happening and what's going on and what information is being asked and what information is being provided and all of those things by how you are and where you go and that. So I'm hoping that I can be within the organization, the laser pointer and, helping direct the direction that the cats all head in.
And we should have NRA, the end of this month, we should have the NRA official publications coming out. So, just about the time we're all getting back from SHOT Show, they should be showing up in your mailboxes.
When we're all getting back from SHOT Show.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, exactly.
Collectively is what he meant.
Yes. When almost all of the gun community, with the exception of one guy in South Dakota, who's going to the Virgin Islands instead. So anyway, let's go to break. I want us to hear from the good folks at JPFO. We'll be right back, folks, right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. JPFO.org.
Welcome back to the second news segment of the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Story I got up next in show notes is off 11 Alive. That's a television station down in Atlanta. They write, Georgia's gun laws will get another look when the legislature convenes starting next week. What they're writing about is when Georgia's constitutional carry went into effect, and by the way, they have a unique law system down there in that the constitutional carry, permitless carry, became effective the second Governor Kemp signed it. And some of the liberals down there went into freak-out mode, and the zoo in Atlanta was not allowed to block because it's owned by the state. They were not allowed to ban carry in there, and they freaked. And there was a music festival because it was on state grounds. They couldn't ban carry on state-owned property. They canceled the music festival because the liberals that ran it were freaking. And here comes a story that there are some Senator Elena Parent, a Democrat of Atlanta, is introducing a bill which would change state law allowing venues to ban guns if they so choose during the duration of events. Georgia was going forward in freedom. I think the newspaper is really taking a hopeful look and hoping they go backwards. I don't see this going a real long way in Georgia. They are solidly red, but we'll have to. It's something we should probably pay attention to.
I would say, yeah. You think about in the last couple of years since with Brian Kemp, Taurus has moved down to Bainbridge, Georgia. Remington, the new Remington, is having their headquarters in Georgia. Norma Ammunition just has set up a huge plant in the Savannah area. I think this is a wish list by the Atlanta media and giving a lot of credit to a white liberal out of Atlanta who might be one of their local favorites. I don't see it going anywhere. I don't think that Brian Kemp would approve of it. I think he would veto the bill. I don't see that you miss one music festival or two music festivals that it's going to make that much of a difference.
It's going to hurt the bottom line of the liberals that cancel the music festivals, but...
Exactly. And Kemp was at the NSSF SHOT Show's governor's forum last year, and he was they were all pro-gun, and he was very much so up there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because even if they manage to pass it, somebody's going to push back. Somebody like SAF or Firearms Policy Coalition or one of the Georgia state organizations, somebody's going to push back, and the Bruin case stands for this at the same time. So it's you can't keep creating these. I mean, it's sort of the same thing that New York is trying to do with their, what do they call them, safe places, or I don't know, it's an S word, strategic places. What's the word?
Sensitive.
Sensitive places. Yeah, sensitive. Sensitive's not even in my vocabulary.
All right, yeah. Let me let's make a left turn here. Jack says, I'm going to leave New York and then follow the gun companies to a state they have moved to, assuming they know it's a safe space. Well, they're putting their money where they're how do I put that? They're certainly making decisions based on profit, based on where they're welcomed. So yeah.
We kind of hit this on the bullet today with the list of the country stars that.
Yes.
Yeah. So something very similar here is if the Democrat politicians don't want to have these events because people want to carry firearms on these properties to be able to protect themselves. Where they didn't. Atlanta is where they had the the bombing during the Olympics, right?
Yeah, the Olympic bomber.
Mm-hmm. Right. So this is kind of a two-way street. Like I said before, you can't. We're for the cancel culture. We're against the cancel culture before we're for it. So we don't want people canceled because of what we believe in, and we don't want artists to talk their politics, particularly if we don't agree with them. But if the government wants to say, hey, listen, you know what, we can't have these events because people are going to bring their guns, well, then this is what happens when you say you can't, you don't want people to be able to protect themselves, and you don't respect people's rights, and they're not going to go to these events, and that's just that's what you get. Like, be careful what you wish for,
Here's an interesting, and this is speaking of left turns. I think this is going to take us on one. C&T Designs and Arms says Southern states tend to be more gun-friendly. C&T, let me take a little bit of an exception with that. I don't think it's southern. I think it's rural. I think it is states that don't have high population densities, such as New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. When you got more areas that are rural, where people have to take care of themselves, this just let the police protect you does not fly.
See, I think it's saltwater.
You think so?
Uh-huh. I think it's the percentage of saltwater to the percentage of acreage of the states. So those who have more saltwater per acre, they're anti-gun.
I don't know about that. North Carolina's got a lot of salt water when you include all the sounds in the bays.
And Florida has got a lot of salt water.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say maybe it's sand, but the Southwest has a lot of sand in the desert, so man, that's probably not going to fly.
It's not it either.
And the greatest majority of it is in the legislators between the ears. I don't. Anyway.
So much for my theory.
It was good while it lasted.
And then data fell into the mix.
My freedoms end at your nose. Your freedoms end at mine. That is how freedom works. You're right. Large number of people live in cities tend to be leftists. And that's unfortunate. Simply because I would think it should really go the other way. Large cities, the more people you get in one place, the higher the chance there is of crime. And so, I mean, let's put it even at one person per million being a very bad person. Well, you get to places like New York. They got how many millions in New York City? Hell, even Camden's got 1 million. You get Atlanta's got probably 3 or 4 million. Dallas Fort Worth has got several million. You get into these big megalopolises, you got really bad people there. You would think the people would say, the rest of the people would say, I don't have a policeman at my door. Let me protect myself. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Let's see here. One story that I want to get to, and I see we're burning time like nobody's business. Dan Waz had an article come out last week on Ammo Land, and he went through, or somebody went through, but he wrote about it, and listed what the ATF has now because of that big omnibus spending bill that went through about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Dan Waz writes, the ATF now has all the money they need for the following. Proceed with Biden's pistol ban agenda and the ATF's illegal gun registry. Over $700 million in funds to encourage states to pass red flag laws. Funds to encourage VA medical centers to confiscate firearms owned by veterans. Money for the Department of Education to push their so-called safe storage gun laws on parents. Funds for the VA to keep notes on the exact location of veterans' firearms through their gun storage maps program. Guys, I hadn't even heard of that before. Just the name of that scares the living hoo-ha out of me. Compensation for families of deceased ATF agent, which some say may have indications of future gun confiscation. Programs designed to discourage women from exercising their Second Amendment right. Many Dickey Amendment violations, and he goes on to explain the Dickey Amendment prohibits CDC from using funds to conduct research that could be used to advocate for gun control. And the CDC suppression of self-defense statistics, ignoring its own studies from the 1990s, which showed 2.46 million defensive gun uses per year in America. All of that, plus a few I didn't get to, are in that big omnibus bill. Good on Dan for digging all that stuff out. And we talked about this a little bit on Saturday. That's the danger of these big omnibus or catch-all bills, is you can never be sure of everything that's in there, and this is what we're getting.
I want to ask the easy question, and I know the answer to this, but where are they getting all of this money? And I know the answer is from taxpayers. I get it. But holy moly, that is an amazing amount of money. $700 million for red flag laws. Oof.
Well, just the omnibus bill with what, 1.7 billion in spending? 1.7 trillion.
Trillion, right.
Yeah.
I saw a video today where a guy says, let me tell you the difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion. And he said a million seconds ago was like last year, and a billion seconds ago was like 11 years ago, and a trillion seconds ago was like, I don't know, 37 years or something crazy like this. So like the numbers are staggering. With new math, we shouldn't even be able to count this high.
Well, Charlie, your unborn grandchildren from down the road will be paying for this.
And it's as if there's nothing that's going to come up between now and then that they're going to have to pay for.
Well, exactly.
Right. Well, what they say that every American citizen now owes $91,000. I think that's what it is.
That's not even taxpayers. That's just citizens. I know people who don't make enough money to pay taxes. Actually, I know several that don't make enough money to pay taxes. I count myself as one that's fortunate enough that I do have to pay some taxes. I'm not saying I pay a crap ton, but I pay taxes.
I'm not saying I love it, but I do
it. And I would say, honestly, I would guess all of us on the screen pay taxes, but I'm thinking we're in almost the minority. I would have to go find numbers for this, but I bet you 50% of the population that earns income does not pay any federal income tax.
Well, there's a bunch that get back more than they make.
Yeah.
I will say that since I've become a gun instructor, I've been writing as much stuff off on my taxes as I possibly can. And
that only makes sense, man.
Of course, yes. And still writing off as much as I can, it still seems like I have to fork over some money to the government.
Yeah. It's, how do I put this? Every bit of equipment I use to do these programs, and let's put it, there's a lot of it. If it wasn't bought directly by the Second Amendment Foundation, a lot of it was. I paid for some of it. Guess what? That's all written off. But I still, every year, end up writing a pretty big-sized check. And I honestly think of people that make an income in the United States, I think the majority do not pay any federal taxes, and that is sad to me. But we're not a tax show. We're a gun show and a gun rights show. And C&T says, I really think if you don't actually pay taxes, you shouldn't get to vote. He says you don't, but I'm okay with that. You get just the same amount of votes as you pay in taxes.
No.
No. If you're smart enough to figure a way not to pay taxes because you have write-offs, I'm okay with that.
And you don't want to have, your vote to count by the number of dollars that you have, because all of a sudden it's a kingdom. Because the king's got more money than the people who don't.
The serfs.
Yeah, but I also don't want my money going for needles for, a federal program for needles for junkies.
I mean, that's a completely different thing. I mean, maybe if you want to say that you file a tax return, whether you owe anything or not, then that kind of puts you in the system. But once you're past that, I'm no go.
Yeah, C&T says you got to have skin in the game. Let's do this, guys. We're against it once. We're late, but
you say that every time I'm on this show. You hurt my feelings.
Amanda, I say that every time I'm on this show. So it's not an Amanda thing. It's Paul isn't that great at it. On your Sunday shows. You have automated music that comes in, and eventually the computer will shut your mic off and it will start playing ads. We found that out yesterday. But I don't have that. I don't have the automated system that shuts me down when it's time to go to break, which is kind of a good thing. So let's do this. Let's who are we going to hear from now? Let's hear from the Complete Combatant. When we come back, we're going to get into our GGUs. Right after this, right back, folks.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. This is our defensive gun use segment of the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. Charlie, can I lean on you to take our first one out of Memphis?
Absolutely. This comes from Memphis, Tennessee. At 8 p.m. on a Friday night, a woman was getting into the driver's side of her SUV. At that moment, two men ambush her and attempt to take her hostage. The men were in the car next to her SUV. Nearby, a man sees the attack as she struggles with her potential abductors, and he rushes towards them with a handgun in his hand. This was enough to allow the woman to escape the men and run towards the next row of parked cars. The men jump back into their Ford Focus, and the third suspect threw the vehicle in drive before realizing he needed to be in reverse first. The Germantown police are looking for the suspects who are seen driving north. They are also warning shoppers to be aware of the surroundings and to stay alert. So if something looks suspicious, don't get out or avoid parking your car. Always good to pay attention to your surroundings.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say, and I've said this a million times before, we all have, at least most of us, all of us on the air, I would think most of the people watching or listening to us have firearms. And those are great tools for self-defense. An even better tool is probably somewhere like 100 to 250 horsepower in your standard vehicle. That'll allow you not only to escape if the person you are trying to escape happens to be standing in front of you. God, it really sucks to be them, but it's a great tool for escape and evade and even offense if you need it.
Many cars now have automatic locking systems. I know my truck.
Yeah.
I turn on the moment I put it in drive, the car doors lock. And automatically.
Both my car and my wife's car, you can program where if you put it in lock, if you put it in park, it either does not unlock the doors, or it only unlocks one door, or it's totally customizable. My wife has a Camry, I have a RAV4, both of them Toyota products. But you can get into the system in there, and you can change, everything about the security of your vehicle, what it automatically does and what it automatically does not do. I really like that about those.
I think that the other thing, when you say, you started with a gun and then you went to the car, about those are both tools of personal protection.
Yeah.
I think really the biggest tool of personal protection is awareness, is the parking lot awareness, and aware of what's going on around you, and what you see, and whether you're comfortable and what actions you take from that position of comfort and awareness.
There was an incident this past weekend at the local Walmart, and I got this from my town's community Facebook page, but there were a couple 17-year-old girls that were leaving Walmart, and they saw an envelope on the ground with a bunch of cash in it, and they took a look around, and they noticed there was a car with a couple of guys in it that were kind of keeping an eye on the girls and watching the cash. And the girls didn't pick it up, and these guys kind of kept an eye on these girls, and I guess they ended up following her into another area of the parking lot where they ended up calling the police. It's good to pay attention to your surroundings and have some sort of a plan and know when something's not right. And it's certainly hard to avoid, an envelope full of cash, but it's probably some sort of a scam to kidnap somebody. So you got to watch out for these things. Mm-hmm. And it's good to teach this to your teenagers. I didn't want to seem like the crazy gun guy, but I wanted to chime in and tell them that I have a pepper spray class if they want to take a pepper spray class, but they'll have to get a gun license to have their pepper spray if they're under 18 years old. So it would be a twofer for me, really. But you got to pay attention to this stuff.
Can people under 18 in Massachusetts get a gun license and then get a pepper spray?
So we used to have 3.5 types of gun licenses in Massachusetts, but now we only have 2. And the half a gun license was in order to have pepper spray, and so you could just get a license to have pepper spray. If somebody's 15 to 17 years old, they can get a firearms identification card, and they can have pepper spray if they're 15 to 17 with the FID card. But if they're over 18, then they don't have to have a license to have pepper spray.
I would think pepper spray would qualify as an arm under the Second Amendment. I wonder if, and I know that's why New York reversed their position. I think it was
Supreme Court talked about that.
Yeah.
Out of Massachusetts, Caetano.
There was the Caetano case, that said that tasers are covered under the Second Amendment. So I used to sit here and wonder, I'm like, how is it a taser, which is electric, was covered under the Second Amendment when they didn't have electricity, but an AR-15 is not covered under the Second Amendment? This boggles my mind. And then, as I often say, welcome to the Commonwealth.
Now, what if you're carrying your personal bottle of Tabasco sauce?
Right, you get some concealed carry Tabasco sauce, absolutely.
Or North Carolina,
going
Texas Pete, but
I'm going for hairspray and a lighter.
I saw that James Bond movie.
I was flying out of Hartford one time, and I had a Kubotan on my keychain, and they took the Kubotan from me, but they did not take my little aerosol hairspray and Bic lighter. So I got to keep the James Bond, the poor man's James Bond flamethrower, but they took the little stick that's the size of a pen.
For some reason, I tend to think they're going to have an issue with me having hairspray.
Beard spray.
Yeah, there you go. All right. John, you want to take our next one out of Wisconsin, man?
Yeah, it's from a town called Elderon, as opposed to Alderon, Wisconsin. Star Wars reference there. When will they learn? Don't mess with the old man. An elderly man made his way home from a local establishment. The news source was not specific on that, so we don't know if it was a bar or a restaurant or a bank, and pulled into his garage. Little did he know he had been followed by a 22-year-old man. The young criminal came at the older man and stabbed him in the face. Fortunately, the elderly man was in possession of a firearm and fired one time. The round struck the suspect in the chest. Unfortunately, the attacker wrestled the firearm away from the old man, but he did flee the scene. He was found in a nearby vehicle, having succumbed to the gunshot wound to the chest. The stabbing wounds were not life-threatening, and the older gentleman is recovering in a local hospital.
And he was pogoing.
Pogoing.
Good on him.
It wasn't that too many years ago he would not have been allowed to pogo in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It was the next to last state to have to have carry.
Have carry, period. Yeah, and they went from Wisconsin, if I'm remembering right, because it happened after I started podcasting, they went from no issue to shall issue. And it was the last two were Wisconsin and Illinois. And both of them went from no issue to shall issue.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet if he's an old enough man, he's been carrying all this time with a whole, I got a hard head and you're not telling me what to do.
Could be.
He might have modified it to add a holster now that he's legal.
That is a good point.
And please do, if you're going to carry, please do have it in a holster, please. Let's get this one in here. Evil Swiss Army knife. How dare you carry that without permission from the government?
Just a fancy bottle opener.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the other thing I want to say about this one in Wisconsin with the elderly gentleman is he was stabbed in the face and he stayed in it. You're never, ever, ever out of the fight unless you are either not breathing or not conscious, and one will lead to the other. So if you're alert, you're in the fight, stay in it, keep going.
Speaking of that, there was while I was at the NRA winter meeting, there was a video there of a guy. John, you probably know who I'm talking about. His first name was Raul, and somebody shot him. The bad guys broke in, shot him in the face, and they shot him in one temple, and it took out the other eye, clear across the other side of his head, and knocked him out. And then they took the guns and were chasing his family when Raul regained consciousness and realized that the bad guys had not only shot Raul, they shot somebody else, and they were making tracks to his family. When he pulled pants-on gun on, he pulled his pogo, his concealed carry gun out, and dispatched the bad guy and stopped it and saved his family. He lost his eye, but he saved his family. And it was it was one of those messages that you're listening to it, and you're like, you can't even imagine the fight that, he was unconscious, he was wounded, and when he came to, he realized the fight was still going on.
I remember that story. It wasn't all that long ago. The incident was, but the write-up, I think, has happened in the last 6 months or so. But yeah, that's absolutely. I remember especially the shot in one side and taking his other eye out, and yet the guy was able to, when he came to find these people, return fire, dispatch 2 of them, if my memory is right, and yeah, just amazing story.
It's unbelievable.
Wow. Okay, let me get an unusual one here. 500 Magnum. They don't want you carrying a 2-shot Derringer, but I say carry a Derringer for backup when you fire the missile from your rocket launcher. My bazooka is in the shop right now. I think I'll just stick with carrying my Glock. I want more than 2. So, all right, we're gonna take our final break here. We'll come back. We'll talk about what we've been up to in the media, and we'll shut the show down. We'll be right back right after we hear another one from JPFO. Right back, folks.
It all failed before. Alcohol prohibition brought us organized crime, and no less alcohol. Drug prohibition brought us murderous, no-knock, wrong-house raids.
Police! Search warrant!
No, wait! The crack house is next door!
Now gun prohibitionists want laws to lead us down that same path. Don't Americans ever learn? Just ask yourself, isn't government the only beneficiary of police-state policies? Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Information available at jpfo.org.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Let's go ahead and just where are we at? Let's start, John. Your blog, Only Guns and Money. What's been up there in the last week that you want to talk about, man?
Yeah, I had one post up about the win in the Fifth Circuit, which we talked about a little earlier. The en banc panel said that the language of the law was clear, thus the ATF should not be given any deference in their interpretation of the meaning of one pull of the trigger. Moreover, given the doctrine of lenity, only Congress can make something a criminal offense for violations. The ATF saying bump stocks or machine guns would have created a criminal offense. I think really, in my mind, the most important thing about this win is that it will help in the fight about reclassifying pistol braces as SBRs or short-barreled rifles. And this was a post I did literally just before we came on the air. I heard today that Shannon Watts, our good friend Shannon, plans to retire from the Demanding Mommies at the end of 2023. Personally, I just can't see her giving up the limelight that easily. I wonder if she's found another billionaire with a pet project, or if she plans to run for office. Alternatively, maybe Bloomberg just got tired of funding her lifestyle. The Washington Post had this long, glowing story about her leaving, and said that she'd had ADHD and it allowed her to tweet so much after a shooting and give out the details and put it into context. And I'm like, context? Dancing in Blood is context? But we won't go there. I did have a song up there to wish her a pleasant goodbye. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
I was going to just real quickly, I was going to ask Charlie, you haven't done a certain Spinner song as a gungram, have you?
I have not, but I think we could do that, right?
Yeah.
Right? Na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na.
Uh-huh.
Hey, hey, hey.
goodbye.
Well, see, and I thought you were going to go for Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead.
You know I've used that one.
You know it. It's fitting, and you can use it.
It still fits exactly.
All right, Charlie, what have you been doing with media, bud?
I have a writing shotgun episode coming out tomorrow with Frank Scavo, and he is from the Coalition of Election Integrity. He was one of the folks in the Capitol building on January 6th, 2021, and he talks about all the goings-on that he had to deal with, which cost him $60,000 in legal fees and 2 months of his life. Last week, I did a live show with Matt Mallory, and Adam Kraut was our guest, so people can find that on the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel. And I am going to be working on the next column for Writing Shotgun with Charlie for Armed Lifestyle magazine, which is going to be coming out very, very soon. So that is what's been keeping me busy. Amanda, what is going on with you?
Well, in the writing, I don't. In the Women for Gun Rights, it's on hiatus. So right now, I'm going to be doing the podcast circuit with as many places and people as I possibly can, so that I can continue to spread the word on the voting for the NRA board. And so, because really I am running for office, and so there's a campaign strategy associated with it. Between that and Eye on the Target Radio and all the subsets that I'm going to be recording while we're in Vegas, that's kind of what I'm doing.
Alrighty, on my end, it's going to be for the next several weeks. It's just going to be here doing the Bullet and doing Polite Society and getting ready for a trip in February. You're going to get. If I
Not
would
to
have
interrupt
been,
Paul, but his theme song is going to be all by myself. It's going to be all by myself.
Well, next
you
week,
might have Rob.
Rob may be here next week, but even if I've got to do it solo, next week Adam Kraut is going to be on the show, and we're going to be doing an update about everything the SAF is up to. So even if I am all by myself, there will be Polite Society next week. So 500 Magnum, and I wish Rob was here, because Rob's got a lot closer connection to Louisiana than I do. 500 Magnum wants to know, when do you think Louisiana will get constitutional carry? Maybe this year.
It's the governor's race. If they get a conservative governor, they've got it. If they don't, it's probably not going to happen.
I'm going to say Nebraska is probably going to get it this year. Florida, they say that the governor says he wants it. He's got to clear out the swamp in his own legislature to get it, because they've had a majority for a very long time, and they just cannot get it done in Florida. But I'm gonna say that I honestly believe Nebraska and Florida will get it before Louisiana, because I don't hear a whole lot of noise from Louisiana about it, and I do a news search every day, so we'll see. But I'm thinking, honestly, probably 2024, 2025. They're going to be 27, 28, 29, somewhere in there. And while we got just a few seconds, I'm just getting a random question. I honestly think we're probably going to get north of 30 permitless carry states before all is said and done. We could theoretically go up to about 40 before we start running into states like California, like New York, New Jersey. I mean, there are 10 hardcore, you're not going to get it states. Where in the next several years, where do you guys think we're going to head up? John, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I know North Carolina, Grassroots North Carolina has made that as one of their top 4 priorities for this legislative session. That actually was number 1, followed by getting rid of the pistol purchase permit. We just got a supermajority in the state of Republicans in the state Senate, and we're only missing one person from having a supermajority in the state House. All you have to have is one Democrat, that's potential, who would vote to override the governor, and I think we could have it. We have passed it a few years ago in the state House, so fingers crossed. I think Nebraska is a done deal. I would say Louisiana down the road. South Carolina might take a little longer than you would expect, mainly because they didn't go to open carry until this past session. Florida, yes. No to Virginia for now.
And I think most of the states out west that are going to get it have got it. The one that is not there, but I don't know if they're going to get there, is Nevada.
Yeah.
But
they might have been too Californicated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can't tell you which states they are, but when you really looked at it, they started passing concealed carry, and then they started negotiating reciprocity, and we sat at like 38 states pretty hard for quite a while. So I think that the cap is going to be somewhere right around there for the constitutional carry.
Charlie, we know Massachusetts is going to be probably next to the last, but
I think they're going to secede from the union before they get that. I'm going to say there's going to be probably 37 or 38 states when it all kind of settles down, and it's I don't want to say it stops being an issue, but we've been on a good roll for the last few years. We went, with all the states, we've had, 7 or 8 states in the last couple of years that have really cranked it out. And it's been a wonderful thing. But the Bruin decision only affected, 8 or 9 states. And those are the states that are going to be the holdouts for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. All right. Last one. We're going to get out of here. C&T Designs and Arms says, VA amazes me. Virginia, all the sanctuary cities and counties in Virginia, and they can't get permitless carry passed. Yeah, that's absolutely true. West Virginia is where that started, but Virginia deeply jumped on the bandwagon of sanctuary counties and sanctuary cities for Second Amendment sanctuaries. So,
but look at the population centers.
Yeah,
Northern Virginia, Richmond, Norfolk, Tidewater, Virginia Beach.
Yeah, exactly. The outlying communities of DC. So yeah, those are blue. But anyway, let's see here. I do want to remind everybody that we do have a Facebook listeners group. If you're a member of Facebook and you're interested, search Facebook for Polite Society Podcast Listeners. I don't get there as often as I should, but there is a big community of listeners, and stories get posted all the time. Discussions happen, and we do moderate that so that you don't get in there Shannon Watts will never be a part of that group. So,
I would make her. I mean, she's. How many of us here who are on Twitter have not been blocked by her?
I don't think I have. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter because I know it really. I fought this way for a long time, but it really seems to be the place. And where people get into knockdown, drag-out fights. And I know you can do this on every other platform as well, but it seems to be particularly prevalent with Twitter. So I just put my show on there. I've got a handle. I put my show on it, and whatever happens, happens.
Well, and I got to say, Charlie, both right now and earlier today, you're on Twitter because we broadcast live on Twitter. So you're there, dude.
You're a twit.
I'm a twit. I've been called.
What a crew! Hey, Brooke.
All right. I've been called a lot worse, Amanda. I think I could take it. It's by some people here on the screen too.
All right, let's go ahead and shut this down because I can feel I got something that I need to shut the microphone down for. Before I do that, I'm going to say, everybody, thanks for watching, and that does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. For Amy, Dana, Gary, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until the next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and shut the streams down. Everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll come join me tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time, for the Bullet, and we will see you next time. Thanks again, folks.